Hello, everyone. I'm John Featherston, and welcome. And thank you for joining us for Lessons in Leadership. For those of you who are new, our wonderful host, Dermot Buffini, is the CEO of Buffini Company, the largest training and coaching company in North America. Buffini Company holds a very unique position in the marketplace. They lead more agents, they coach and train more brokers than any other company in the real estate industry. They've had a major impact on the industry, and they've trained and coached more than 3 million professionals in 41 different countries. They've helped millions of agents, brokers, managers, and owners not only build great and lasting businesses, but also to build lasting and fulfilling lives. Dermot has been recognized as an RISMedia newsmaker and by the San Diego Business Journal CEO of the Year. Under his leadership, the San Diego Tribune recognized Buffini Company as one of the top workplaces in San Diego. We're honored to have Dermot here today, and he'll be talking insights on business leadership with Chris Trapani. Please give me a warm welcome to both Dermot and Chris.
Well, thanks a million, John. Great introduction. I'm excited to be here for our first Lessons in Leadership of the year. And I love doing these. And we have a great guest today who I'll introduce here in a second. So, John, we're going to go here as we normally do for about 35 minutes. We're going to dig into some good content, and then we'll come back to you and we'll answer as many questions as we can, because I know that's one of the best parts of this whole deal is to hear from the audience and what's on their mind and where they're at. So
go ahead, guys, have some fun.
Thanks a million, John.
Thanks a lot, John.
Well, we have a great guest for you today. Not only just a great man, a great leader, but it has become a really good friend of mine over the years, and it's been fun to watch this man grow in his career and his leadership in the last 20 years. And today joining us is Chris Trapani. Chris, welcome.
Thank you, Dermot.
I am going to read a little bit about your short bio here so people get a little bit of context to who you are and what you've done. So you bear with me, don't blush, okay? I wrote this from the heart. But for those of you who don't know Chris, Chris is the CEO and co-founder of Sereno Real Estate, which is in Northern California. And over the past 16 years, Sereno has grown to 18 locations and 600 awesome experienced realtors, and recently became part of Christie's International Real Estate. And I'm excited for that for you in your career and in your growth. That's just an awesome part of your story. The company,
Dermot, thank you.
That's a great achievement. Not only have you done well for yourself, but you guys have also done incredibly well. You're the #1 brokerage in Northern California, and you have a program, your 1% for Good Charitable Foundation, which has been named by the Bay Area News as you've been named not only as the best places to work, but you give a tremendous amount of money for your communities every year. I think you've given away $5 million to benefit local charities, which is amazing. I know you're not just a blow-in to Northern California. You grew up in Saratoga, and you grew up in the real estate business. And I know your grandfather, he was in real estate from about 40 years, from the 40s through the 80s. So you've got deep roots in this business.
You got a lot of scoop on me.
I got a whole lot of stuff I took out too. People don't need to know that much about you. But what's been fun for me is to watch you. I've known you for over 20 years. You know, you were a young fella who started in this business. You got into the business at 24. You soon went into management. You were a manager of an office within a couple of years, and you progressed through the ranks. You were identified quickly in the real estate business and leadership, and soon became a vice president of a banker, the youngest vice president in the country. So, you know, congratulations to you. I know that's a longer introduction. We don't normally start our conversations like that, but I think it's important for people to know that you're a real estate man. You come from a real estate heritage. You built this great company. And not only have you done well from it, but you guys, with your agents' help, have really transformed communities. So that's why you're on here today. And why you're on here today is because we want to learn from your experience. The audience, we have everybody from, you know, people who are running teams, agents who are aspiring to grow themselves and grow their business, CEOs of companies on here. And, you know, we were talking a little bit before we get on here about what leadership looks like. And so, listen, thanks so many for taking the time to do this. And that's your rap sheet. That's what I know.
No, that's awesome. I'm honored. Thank you so much. You know, I was honestly, I was a little surprised when you asked me, but immediately said yes. And, you know, my hope is to hopefully share some insights that'll help those on the call today.
Well, I think that's guaranteed. You know, as I said, you are a real estate man. You've grown up in this business, and you've done a great job of not just helping folks, but it's been fun to watch you grow as the company has grown. So let's just dig in here a little bit and talk about leadership. You know, I often say a lot of times, you know, leadership it can be innate, largely it is, but at the same time it can be learned. And if we're paying attention, we can see who does it well, and we can also learn what leadership doesn't look like. So I'm just curious from your standpoint, who's the leaders that you've most admired and why? Like, who inspired you? Who have you learned the most from?
Well, there's actually three people, one from outside the business. When Ryan Iwanaga, my best friend, and I resigned from our former company in 2006, you know, we really wanted to make meaning, not just money. And we had no idea how to do that. And so we came across a book called Let My People Go Surfing by Yvon Chouinard, who's the founder of Patagonia. And in the introduction to that book, really for the first time ever, I heard the words soul and business being used in the same sentence. That just, all the bells went off. And I said, that's exactly what we want to do, is create a for-profit company with a soul. Really, Yvonne's story, the Patagonia story, and really the benevolent spirit of Patagonia is what inspired our 1% for good that you alluded to in the introduction. So that's number one. Number two, my best friend and partner, Ryan Iwanaga, is the most principled leader that I've ever met in the business. I mean, it doesn't matter the Great Recession, the pandemic, whatever the heck's going on. This guy has stuck to his principles, led from that place, and really his leadership and character has really developed a culture of quality and consistency, something that people can really depend upon at Sereno. And then finally, Thad Wong, who is the founder and co-CEO of App Properties, and now Christie's International. And Thad is kind of that paradoxical blend of, in my opinion, one of the leading visionaries of the business today, but also a very grounded human being. It's very difficult to find someone who you can connect to at that personal level that has that sort of grand vision of where the business is going.
He's got his head, what I say, he's got his face in the clouds, but his feet on the ground.
That's a pretty good way to put it, yeah.
So what I'm hearing there is, like, you've surrounded yourself. Number one is, you know, our man from Patagonia. I mean, that's a heck of a story, right?
Totally.
But the soul piece, that's a big piece. I know that's important to you. And Ryan is, and I mentioned him. I mean, what a quality individual he is. He's Mr. Steady. He's the guy you want, you know, when it all hell's breaking loose. He's the guy you want, his hands on the steering wheel, guiding it ahead. And I think the third part I'm hearing is that vision, but practical vision. How would you say that complemented? I mean, obviously that's inspiring to you, but I feel like in some ways that you've just described yourself, parts of yourself, parts that I know about you. Those three elements for you are kind of like, I would describe that. Where would you say your own leadership style complemented those things?
Well, that's interesting. I mean, I have considered myself a student, and I've watched people even before I was in the business. I paid attention to some of the leading managers in real estate for whatever reason. So I've been a beneficiary of being associated with many people that have gone on to do incredible things in the business. So I think my belief is we kind of learn things from others that resonate with us, and then we kind of blend those all into our own self and really personalize it. So it can still be very authentic and really be us, even though we're kind of borrowing things that resonate with us from other people.
Yeah, for sure.
So that might be why, you know, if you say that some of that is represented by leadership, that's probably why, because I've kind of paid attention and borrowed from that and kind of really tried to apply myself in those areas that speak to me.
Yeah. You know, there's an old saying, it's like, this can really inspire you, or it can scare the heck out of you, which is the old statement is, you really attract who you are. you know? And sometimes I've thought about that in some of my friendships in my teens or my early 20s. I'm like, oh crap, is that who I really am? Is that who I was? You know, they're phenomenal qualities. And again, I think, you know, your story, what you did, I remember when you started Sereno, it took a lot of faith because you gave up a great position in something you loved, in a great company that you helped build,
Mhm.
to start out and do your own thing. And I know those components, whilst they can be easy to say, they're not easy to do. So maybe, and again, for people who are watching this, Chris and I have a chat beforehand to prepare for these, just as regards the flow. But we're just having a chat here, and these questions, Chris doesn't know what I'm going to ask him next, because sometimes I don't know what I'm going to ask because he says something. But I'm curious about, how do you demonstrate those things inside of Sereno? You know, you've got your giving, your community, that really shows your heart for your communities. But how do you transfer this as a leader from your company culture? Because you just described all the things that are very important to your company and Ryan. How do you demonstrate those inside of your organization with realtors, with your leadership team? What are some of the things that you do?
Well, you know, I think in my mind, you know, being a leader is really serving others with love.
Hmm.
And again, when you talk about soul and love, those are things that a lot of people in business don't necessarily speak about. But we talked about it before we hopped on here. I mean, you know, tech has done a great deal to help us communicate and leverage things in the biz, but it hasn't changed the uniquely personal relational part of the business,
Mhm.
right? And so every one of our agents is establishing and developing a uniquely personal relationship with every single client. I mean, some of the fundamentals may be the same, but really the stories and the emotions and all those things are different in every single situation, and they have to you know, be able to listen and adapt to that. So I also think as a brokerage, that's kind of where the soul and the love comes in, is we need to be connected with our agents on that personal level as well. We need to be by their side in the trenches, whatever variables come, you know, pandemic, Great Recession, whatever they are, we're going through this stuff together. And I think there's a great deal of synergy and momentum that gets developed when you have a culture like that.
Mhm. Yeah, because I think when people hear the word love in business, it's like, what are we talking about?
What's love got to do with it?
Exactly. You know, I say to people, you can often love someone well, but it doesn't mean you have to like them. But what I hear you say there is like, you know, love in this situation looks like really knowing the people who you're working with and serving them based on what their needs are. Serving them because you know what's important to them. Hopefully you've attracted what's important to, you know, like-minded people who value what you value. And I think just that distinction, because it is for some of the hard cold, you know, this is the way it is, my way or the highway type approach. I think, you know, sometimes this cultural shift towards, hey, really caring and paying attention to folks, that's a big swing, right? Because at the same time as you do that, but you're also running the business. You know, so how do you balance this between, this is my culture, which is I'm going to align, I'm going to serve them, I'm going to pay attention, I'm going to know them, I'm going to get behind them. You said it, I'm going to be in it with you. That's what you just described as what love means. But you also have to run a business. How do you manage those two things? Where's the line? What's the, you know, between somebody's either toxic for your culture or just not producing?
Yeah, I mean, that's really tough. You know, I think, again, in our business, there's a lot of different ways if the success is just numbers and transactions, there's a lot of different ways you can get there. You can get there as an agent, you can get there as a firm. And so I think kind of knowing on the front end, if you're being intentional if you're an agent, about the type of clients you want to work with. And there's some people you don't want to work with, and that's okay.
Yeah.
As a brokerage too, it goes the same. And you know, we've really, our first 10 years, I mean, the first 300 people that we hired were actually all experienced people that we knew their character, their reputation. So the foundation of the company, the cultural foundation was pretty rock solid in the overall scheme of things, right? We can go out and hire 1,000 brand new licensees, but we may not. What other business in the world goes and just hires, you know, massive numbers of people and knows nothing about those people, and kind of on a hope and a prayer that maybe out of 1,000, you know, 40 will make it, right? And that seemed to be kind of like, we really we really kind of had to, you know, fight against that in order to kind of build in the foundation. So with the front end intention, what I would say, it makes the management a lot easier.
Yeah,
You
for
know,
sure.
it makes, you know, you give your agents so much more autonomy. You know, do you trust them? It's very, very high trust. So you trust them to make, you know, smart decisions, and all kinds of things actually work in your favor with that intention on the front end.
Well, it's interesting you should say when you're saying that. I remember when you were describing to me what your intention was for the business. It was to start off with experienced agents that you relationally knew, and then provide them the tools and service they need to continue to be successful. But you did have that cultural connection, like these are people that I would love to work with. So as you say, a good starting with the end in mind, it does serve you very well if you get the opportunity to do that, right? So, and I think that's very consistent throughout your company. And I did a little roadshow with you 2 years ago, and we had a great time driving around and talking to agents and doing some presentations. And that continuity was there. I could say, yep, that's a Sereno person. Let's say, you know, there's agents on here who are, you know, as you say, you just said it, you don't have to work with everybody. So whether you're a brokerage or an agent, and let's say you might not have started with your foundation of who it is you're looking for, how would you advise them to go through the process of, you know, maybe resetting? If you were coaching them, you're like, maybe you're serving some people that don't match up with your values or what you're about.
That's a good question. I mean, look, we definitely made some mistakes. We're going to talk about some of those lessons later, but you know, and I just mean hiring mistakes. And so, what if the culture is strong enough, either those people will be weeded out, or you may have to make decisions to actually move them along. I've been amazed, and sometimes that person, when you're a broker owner, might be someone who's actually productive. And so there's a big balance between, you know, cultural disruption and productivity. But I can tell you, more than once, and probably actually many times, when we've made that tough decision, all of a sudden, all these agents get attracted to that office or environment. I've seen this happen over and over. So you're holding so tightly to the one person that kind of you think has you hostage because they're producing at a certain level, but their toxic energy is just disrupting everything. And as soon as you get the courage to release that person, all of a sudden you find that here comes all these wonderful agents that where were those people before?
So true. So true. So, and you said courage and let go, right? So the same way with an agent on here, you got a client who gives you lots of transactions, but you're not sleeping well at night. You're conflict every time you work with them. You don't look forward to getting on the phone with them. They question you, you know, everything about it, from your commission. They're high maintenance, you know. So, you know, I think it's the same thing when we coach folks. It's letting go of those folks because the conflict is internal. It's like, I don't want to duplicate this person, because I think the challenge there is you can end up getting a referral to somebody like that person because they all know each other. The same way as, you know, run a brokerage. If you get the wrong referral to an agent from the wrong agent, you're going to be chasing your tail and eventually drifting into undoing your culture. Because what I heard you say there is you value your culture more than just a result. It's not enough to check that box of like, hey, well, they make money, leave them alone. What I hear you saying is, well, that's a criteria, but they have to check other boxes too. Is that right?
That's right. And, you know, a lot of the lessons turn out to be counterintuitive. Because we think more clients, more agents, more numbers, and all those kind of things. And it's easy to get caught up into that trap.
Yeah. Well, what would you say are the traps, some of the mistakes, things that have spoken to you? Because for me, it's not just so much, what I've learned is it's the things that it was the experiences that taught me and the people that taught me and the mistakes. And let's just put it down to lessons, because this is what this is about. Lessons in leadership. It's not about winnings in leadership. What are some of the lessons you've learned that you would advise people to maybe keep an eye out for?
Well, that's great. And I'm still not sure why we actually have to learn these the hard way sometimes. But I'll tell you one thing, if you do learn it the hard way, you know, it has a very, very deep impression on you. So I have 5 things here, and I thought quite a bit about this. But the first thing is asking others for help is not a sign of weakness.
I'm writing these down, by the way.
Okay. And so for a long time, and again, this is counterintuitive, you know, maybe it's someone like my dad, always seemed very strong, never needed any help. He always did everything on his own. He was going to conquer the world. Or maybe it's a business person that we admired, right? So whatever those messages are, we can kind of, you know, be led to believe that asking for help is a weakness. And that's a problem.
It's
Because,
something we've done with each other. It's
right?
something we've done with each other in our friendship and our business careers. Like, hey, how would you think about it? It's been, you know, as you're saying that, I'm like, oh, I guess we've been doing that.
Well, we have, but you know, for a long time, again, it was just something I just thought that it was a weakness, and it's actually opposite. I think really what happens is when we're not asking for help, we're actually probably masking some insecurity that's going to show that, you know, make people think we're weak, when actually asking for help is a level of, I think, maturity. It's an evolved leader that's able to ask other people and engage them.
Well, and I don't want to stop because we've got 4 more points to get to, and I want to get to what you're saying. But as you're saying, like, I know a bit about your story. Like, your dad was a hard charging insurance guy who was super successful. And as you said, the lessons you learn is, okay, that's what it takes from a work ethic standpoint. But the lesson also is like, you got to ask, what I'm hearing there is you got to ask for help.
Absolutely.
Not be just one, because the other one won't serve you well either.
Exactly. And then, you know, again, you engage people, you can accomplish way more. I mean, it's definitely more sustainable engaging other people than trying to do it by yourself. So,
okay, sorry, I have to do this. Sorry.
Go.
How do you ask for help? Because it sounds easy. How do you go about asking for help? What does it look like practically? Because I think for a lot of people, it's like, yeah, I know I need the help, but I don't want to bother somebody. I know I need the help, but I don't know when I want to come across the wrong way. I mean, you know, we teach people how to ask for referrals. That in its very essence is somebody asking somebody that they know for help. It's very vulnerable. How do we ask for help?
Well, I mean, I think, you know, in my case, and I think we have very capable people around us, right? And so I think kind of identifying like, hey, this person has this talent, you know, it's very simple. I need some help on this. I can't handle this by myself. Can you take responsibility for this? Right? I mean, it's pretty simple. Those, again, it sounds simple, but it can actually be very difficult if you've spent 25 years with the kind of thought of, hey, you know, I'm the guy or I'm the gal, and you know, and I got to do it. If it's going to get done, I have to do it, right? And you can't sustain that.
No, that's awesome. So look at people, what I'm hearing there, look at people who have a talent you don't possess, people you admire, people you respect, invite them in to that space and be vulnerable enough and not be a brave heart who feels like he has to charge every hill and attack every Englishman. You know, maybe there's a better plan.
Exactly.
Got it. Good.
Okay. Number 2 is earning respect is more important than being liked. And this is a very tough one, because again, you can achieve a level of success by having a lot of people like you, but you can undermine your very own leadership by carrying that out too far, right? And so having those kind of conversations with people that you need to have, the tough ones. I mean, what manager or broker wants to tell their agent something that the agent doesn't want to hear, but they need to hear?
Yeah, for sure.
Out of fear, right? And so again, you can achieve results for a while, but you end up undermining your own leadership. And so, you know, and again, this is new to me. I'm telling you stuff just in the last couple of years. So I have to sometimes remind myself, wait a minute, I have to check myself. This is something which I need to go eye to eye with someone and have the heart to heart. And that's going to create a lot more credibility in my leadership over the long run than worrying about how many people like me.
Oh, that's huge. And especially for a guy who's as relationally talented as you are. People are like you, they see how smart you are, they want to engage you. And you know that's a superpower for you. To have charisma, to attract people to you. But you say that fine line between people pleasing, you know, that's a great line. I watch The Office. I don't know if you watch The Office, but there's a great line there. Michael Scott goes, people ask about leadership, whether it's, you know, would you like people to love you or fear you? And he goes, I want people to fear how much they love me, you know? So, no, but I think that's just such a huge, that's huge. That's a huge piece. Yeah, love it. All right.
So number 3 is to acknowledge that there are people smarter than you and who you can learn from.
Mm.
And that's an interesting one. Again, you know, having been an agent and driving real hard and, you know, working endless hours to build my business, to get the trophy, you know, and all that stuff, it's kind of, there's a lot of alone time and you're kind of in your head a lot and you start getting results. And there's just this pattern of potentially starting to think, hey, I got this figured out and I know it all and I'm smarter than them and no one can teach me anything and all this and that. And actually, it's a very limiting belief over the long run. And so again, I'm telling you things that even in the last couple of years that I just step back and say, wait, there's a lot of people around the business that are a heck of a lot inside and outside the business are a lot smarter than I am. I can learn from these people. Yes. And by learning from those people, we can actually, you know, propel ourselves to do more.
So good. You know, the thing is, they say success is a lousy teacher. You know, as you said, like the pain of something that is so mistakes that hurt because you're like, either A, it hurt financially, B, it hurt me like, hey, my superpower isn't working for me in this capacity. But the third point, you know, as you're saying that, the third point helps with number 1. It also helps with number 2, because if I can acknowledge, if I can step into my weakness, I can access power. Like if I can step into weakness, I can access other people's power for good. Like I can say, hey, this is something. So as you're saying that, I see those 3 things together. See, if you start almost at number 3, then you can go to number 1. I know who to ask for help because I see them. And the second thing is, nobody's going to respect you more for coming to them saying, hey, you might not be aware of this, which they are, but I'm not really good at this. And they're like, thank you so much for saying that, you know, because I've known that for 5 years. But now the respect is, and the leadership thing that it models is this, hey, this is how we're going to do this together. So I love it, Chris. What else have you got for me? This is good stuff.
Well, this is 4, and this is kind of, maybe I'm the only one that has this problem, but if you're driving yourself crazy about details, ask yourself, if no one else is as worked up about such things, is it really important enough for you to be?
Ooh, that's very good. So give me an example of that, how that has looked like for you. How have you come to that conclusion?
Well, if you ever find yourself kind of in a spin about a certain detail, and now I kind of find humor in this because this happens to me. I get caught up in a little detail. Like it's like being the person that like cares the most, but to an extent that it's almost an unhealthy caring about it. Like, come on, at the end of the day, is it really that important? And so this is like my epiphany in the last 1 to 2 years, and it's helped me a lot because I say, if I'm the only one that's really stressed out or worried about this, maybe I'm the guy that's got the problem here, right? And so again, I kind of almost, I say I have a sense of humor, but because I've acknowledged what I just said, you know, for many, many years, I think I exhausted a lot of unnecessary energy fretting about a lot of different things that I had put too much like over importance on. Yes. And it really didn't matter. My worry or concern about it was over exaggerated. It wasn't a healthy correlation to whatever the matter was at hand. And so now I can catch myself in it, kind of laugh at myself, and you know, some days I'm better at kind of unwinding out of it, but
you're catching.
It's more of a struggle. But I can recognize it now.
That's huge. All right, so because this is big, because if the leader goes there and if it's causing stress for the individual, it's going to cause stress on the team, right?
100%.
Even if they're and then conflict because they don't feel the same way. Like as regards at a core level, they're like, okay, this is causing me stress, and it's causing me double stress because I don't see what the big deal is. How do you
or no, first, no one else is as worried about it. Why don't they care as much as I do? You know, like you can do that whole thing.
So, and again, you know, I'm sorry about this. I know I want to get to number 5 here, but you know, again, practically, because you can say you're really speaking from a lot of experience and then a lot of self-reflection. Okay, which a lot of people don't do, because you just said, I want to serve through love, like, and serving other people. Well, if you're going to do that, then you have to know how you're negatively impacting them. And everything you're describing is modeling what it looks like to lead people in a healthy way, because you're analyzing yourself in a very healthy way.
Well, yeah,
So-
yeah. You made me think of something else too, though, because if as a leader, if I've had to check myself too here, because if you're in that spin and then you spread that spin around on your team, just imagine that the effect on them is going to be compounded by the spin in you, right?
sure.
And so that's another point of it. Checking yourself, like, do I really have to communicate this to that person? Is this really essential that I have to? And maybe that trims down, 80% of that communication, and you kind of resolve it within yourself, or you let other people kind of resolve it. It gets resolved, and in a reasonable amount. Like our middle son has celiac disease, right? He's allergic to gluten and wheat. And many years ago, he asked me, "Dad, are you allergic to anything?" And I said, "Waiting." As we were waiting in a line somewhere, and that's a problem that I'm very well aware that I've had. And so my pace may be different than other people's pace, but that doesn't mean that I'm right about the pace. So I have to kind of be sensitive. Again, you talk about serving people with love. You have to kind of understand that our pace may not be the same as everyone else's, and it might actually be unhealthy.
For sure. And you have to find the balance of that, because Chris, you don't do what you and Ryan have done without some pace and intensity. You just don't. Okay. Buffini Company, without myself and Brian's intensity, this isn't where it is. But at some point it has to settle down, because you can't sprint a marathon, right? And so how do you invite people into that? Once you're aware of it, okay, how do you invite them into, I hear you say, you may kind of laugh at it and say, I can see you doing it, but could you describe it for those folks, how you invite people into this to do the check on your...
I've actually kind of, I'm just thinking of a couple examples. I've kind of lightened it up. If I do have to communicate something, I will acknowledge in my communication, like, I know this is my OCD, or, I'll kind of make light of it in a way, but this is something that I kind of need to unpack.
Yeah, that's great.
Right? And so there's a little bit of an acknowledgement of the fact it might be me, but this is just something that I can't resolve. If I can't resolve it and have to communicate it, then I'll try to package it in a way that the person can kind of take a breath and kind of absorb.
Well, and I'm not going to speak out of school, but I am a little bit, okay? Because I have seen you do this with your team. I've actually seen you, witnessed you as the leader, as with Ryan, as a co-founder, pause to invite people into this place with ownership. And I can tell you, it's one of the most powerful things I've seen a leader do with their team. And so I think it's huge. And I give you, like, I really tip the cap. That's one of the reasons I have you on here, because it's really, people use the word authentic. I would just say honest. It's just an honest approach to leadership. And what I see is your team responds to that in a way they want to give you more. They want to do more because they feel respected in the process and valued. And I think it's so powerful. And I think as well, for the generation that's coming up behind us, I don't think you're going to be in business and lead people unless you have that approach. So I think this is massive stuff. And I could talk to you for 2 more days on this, but I know we only have a few more minutes. So
come on over to my house anytime. We can continue.
On the way. Give me number 5. This is great stuff.
Boy, number 5. Finally, if and when you do realize success, don't fall into the trap of thinking you did it all on your own.
Yeah.
And again, at the end of the day, it's less about us than we might think it is, right? And a lot of the things that I said leading up to this here, if you reverse everything that I just shared in the lessons, that actually sets up the trap. It sets up the trap for thinking I did it, right? And so, and that leads to all kinds of, all those poor unhealthy decision making along the way. could kind of lead you into that trap, and then for all the things that you worked for, you run the risk of making cataclysmic decisions that can unravel
Right.
the stuff that's most important to you.
For sure. For sure. I mean, like we could, as I said, each one of these points is like a seminar in itself. I think this is something as well as a leader. It's like there's good ego and bad ego. Ego, you need a bit of ego in a positive way to get something going and have some self-belief. Let's just call it self-belief. Our human nature is ego means just more. I want more. And when I have more, then there'll be more and I'll be more. And then I'm me, and I turn into a me monster. That's what I call it. It's like, there's no I in we, how do you go about recognizing, or what does it look like for you to be able to acknowledge that with your team and your maybe the agents or at home or where, in any area? How have you learned to vocalize that or demonstrate it?
Well, a lot of times, there was a time where I probably just figured I knew, the best and right answer all the time. And you wouldn't give people the time to actually share their ideas and process and listen and kind of honor those ideas and actually discover that maybe they have an idea that can be helpful or better as well. And so for me, it's kind of taking a step back and allowing some of the steps we just talked about allows other people to engage and actually develop their own giftedness.
Yeah.
Or creating avenues for the people around you to discover their talents and lean into their giftedness. And then in so doing, you have an opportunity to actually sincerely appreciate those people and praise them. I mean, really praise them and say, wow, that's something that I could not have possibly done any better than you just did. And that's a gift.
For sure. No, that's massive. It's a lot of times I see people with, and God bless you if you have one of these, and don't turn it off. I'm just me being from Ireland. Maybe I'm just a bit too old school. Like I am not giving out. My kid was a superstar at this school or that school. It's just like I think it sets them up for a false praise that doesn't serve them well and longer in their going to the job. You didn't get your sticker to put on the bumper today to say my kid was a top realtor, had a great advice. It's just, and so you can fall into that same way as you can tell people, I love you, I love you, I love you, but my actions don't match up to that. What I just heard from you is if you just demonstrate steps 1 through 5, you're going to actually tangibly demonstrate that in a way that's far beyond words. And I think that is brilliant. It's brilliant because you engage the team, you ask for help, you're acknowledging that the fact that they might have a better idea than you, and then you're taking ownership of yourself where you're allowing space for them, but also space for you too. Because as the leader, and again, I've seen you in action with your team, they do admire you, they do respect you, and at the same time as they know you, it's reciprocated. And they want to see you fly and say, hey, if you could just go and do these things, oh my gosh, we're going to be unstoppable. And so, that again, brilliant stuff. I could keep going on this, and as I said, I know you a long time. The fruit is in the results, but I've also seen it in the culture with your agents and how they feel about you and the company. It's showing up in your community with giving, again, tangibly. We're not just supporting our communities in words. Here's $5 million. So I just want to thank you for sharing this today. This is massive. I could go on and on and on, but I think we are going to have a bunch of questions to answer here, probably that are going to be even more important than even some of the stuff we've talked about based on what you've shared. So, hey, I've got a page of notes here, and now you're probably going to be, I'm going to probably be calling you way too much now, so you're going to be sorry you did this. But
no, thank you so much.
This is brilliant stuff and so practical, and I hope everybody took loads of notes. But let's do this, Chris, if you're good with it. Let's invite John back on. We'll do a few questions and do as many as we can, and we'll get into some real world stuff. Sound good?
Awesome.
All right, John, you're up.
Guys, first of all, what a fabulous discussion. You two it could go on and be insightful for a long time to come. I think looking at the questions that have come in, Chris, your 5 key steps to success, tremendous. And I think when you bridge that with your suggestion of who do you admire and who do you try to emulate, your partner Ryan was just fabulous. But then you mentioned Thad Wong, another absolutely undersung, incredible leader in our industry, and I'm proud to say he's a friend of mine. And you mentioned Patagonia as an example. Well, that led to a question that came up, and that is, what books do you recommend on leadership for our readers to follow?
Well, I mentioned earlier, some of the lessons, again, I said, I don't know why, maybe it's just me, but I had to learn some of those, learn by doing. So they stuck with me pretty good. But, a really cool book is Yvonne's Let My People Go Surfing. And that tells the Patagonia story, talks a lot about what it means to be a for-profit company with a soul. We've talked a lot about how real estate is just so uniquely personal. Despite all the tech, it just has remained so uniquely personal. So I think that soul in business, really in community, and we talked about the giving, giving in the community, investing in the community, that's all intertwined. Kind of an older book, and it's kind of resurfaced again, but The 4 Agreements, I think, is a phenomenal book. There's a book called The Art of the Start. And this is for people that are thinking about starting out or starting up. Guy Kawasaki, that was at Apple for many years. And really what we came across in there, I shared earlier, kind of setting out to make meaning, not just money, right? Because at the end of the day, if you end up making a lot of meaning, most likely the economic benefits are going to be a byproduct of that making meaning. And the last one, again, it's a little bit of an older school, I say probably a couple of decades, but Good to Great, specifically in Good to Great, is when they talk about the level 5 leader. And that really resonated. So I think that speaks to the servant leader, the self-effacing leader, the humble leader, the one that's out plowing in the field every day, that just keeps showing up. So that's what I'd recommend.
Good, Chris. Dermot, give us your insight on a book or two you recommend.
Well, I'm sitting right behind this as a bookshelf of books, and from the 360-degree leader, the 4 disciplines of execution, the heart of business, leading from the heart. I've got a bunch of them, but here's for me personally. I remember a pastor one time saying, "Hey, just remember, you might be the only Bible people actually read and pay attention to." When we do these, John, and one thing you and I talked about earlier, it's like, let's find people who we can really hold up, who go, that's a great example of someone. Like, that's our criteria. It's like, have they done it? Do they know it? Have they learned? Can they share it? And Chris is an example of that. Chris is a book to me. Chris is a book to me because I watch him. I'm like, I like this guy. Is he perfect? No. That's because he's like me. He's part Italian, right? So, but is he good? Yes. He's a good man trying to do good things and serve good people. What I heard Chris today say was the book Chris learned to read the most was himself. I would say there's every topic covered in leadership and every book you want to find when you get more specific. But for me, and what I heard Chris say today is, once you start to read this book, what are my tendencies? What are my gifts? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? How do I communicate? What's it like to be on the other side of me? Chris just described that too. Hey, I'm sure when you reflect on that, Chris, you're like, yeah, that's not exactly how I want to come across. So I think the best book you can read is your past, your gifts, learn about yourself, open up other people to allow them in to speak into your book. That's like, who am I as a leader? Who do you believe Dermot Buffini is? Who do you believe Chris Trapani is? Who's John Featherston? Invite people into it. And again, I don't want to get too philosophical about it because we are talking about books, but I think that's what I heard from Chris today. Just such awareness of himself. And I think that's brilliant. So that would be my advice. Read your own book first. And then the second part is this.
Good, keep going.
I talk about the reason I asked the question of what leader do you admire and why? Is because Chris was able to rattle them off like this because That's who I've learned from. That's whose standards. That's whose values. And a lot of times we don't learn from just inspiration and vision and mountaintop. A lot of times we're just more confused and more overwhelmed because I'm not this and I'm not that and I'm not. It's like learning to the movies you like, the books you read, the people you like will help you form your leadership style and your leadership gifts and your weaknesses and allow you to invite other people in. So sorry for the long answer, but that's what I learned from Chris today. Like that's a good book right there.
I think that's a spot on, Dermot. And I think as you two were talking in your discussion, that led to another question. You were talking about the cultural shift. You're talking about caring and really being organizations that personify the leadership. You care about your culture and the people that make up your organization. And one of the things that Chris mentioned is appreciate the people's contribution to the success. So with that, the question has come up repeatedly. What is the best way for both of you? What is the best way that you find to connect with your audience or with your people as a leader?
Well, it's a great question. Turns out nothing beats in person. I mean, this is nice. It's great to get leverage and scale with all these, video technology and whatnot. But boy, it's sure been nice to be able to, get back in person with some of our groups and one-on-one. And so I find it's most effective being able to be in contact with people in person. One of the things though that we have done, I'd say that, there's kind of a rhythm in a lot of brokerages. You have your regular meetings, sales meetings and all, and that's all great. We've been doing those for a long time, and managers are phenomenal. It's like a pastor of a church. They keep showing up every Tuesday with a new message. It's amazing, But Ryan and I started a few months back after we partnered with Thad Wong and Christie's. We've been doing these town halls once a month. There's no agenda. We just hop on a town hall. We invite everybody in our company. We might get a couple hundred people, might be 300, might be 150, but to have like an open forum where we're actually having a conversation versus presenting to them, that has been really effective. I know for me personally, it's been very gratifying to listen and hear everybody, because then you're communicating and over communicating and listening and hearing and sharing and all those kind of things in a way that, again, is not just a one way. And this is a new thing that we've been doing, and I think we're going to continue doing those once a month with Ryan and I and the entire company.
That's awesome.
Dermot?
Yeah, I think Chris said it earlier too, and he said it so well there again. It's like, I think, I heard a saying here recently, and hopefully I'm not going to butcher it, but it's kind of like to care about the things that the people you care about care about. So in other words, my son is a baseball player. I never played baseball. They gave us bats in Ireland, we'd be beating the hell out of each other. There'd be blood on the streets. I don't know all the rules. I've been watching him since he's 6 years of age, and I swear to God, every time I watch it, I'm more confused about the game. But my son loves baseball. And I go and I stand there and I'm like, no idea what's going on. But I care about him and I care about what he cares about. So then I'm all in. So what trainer does he need? What batting practice does he need? And I think that's what Chris was saying earlier. It's like, you got to know your agents, what they care about. That's what you should care about, if it aligns. An agent who's working with a buyer or seller, what do they care about? Don't try and convince them of something else. Say, no, here's what you should care about. It's like, know what they care about so you know your audience. And if you know your audience, you can serve your audience, rather than, I'm going to give you what you think you need because it's what I need. I think that's what Chris saying, like, open it up without an agenda, to be one-on-one, to be open, to have an open mic, to listen to what people are concerned about, what they care about, what they value. And as Chris said earlier, like, loving them means now we're in it together to make that happen for you. That's a lot of work, but I'll tell you what, that's great work. So that's what I would add.
That's great. Now, this is a little different, okay? You, Chris, you and Ryan are not only best of friends, you're incredibly successful business partners And you're, the same age, and you probably have a lot of the same likes and dislikes. But how difficult is it for you? And you know what, Dermot, you see this firsthand all across this nation. The question is, how do you lead a multi-generational workforce at different life stages and various experiences and priorities? How do you lead that? And how do you get them to work together to grow the organization?
Boy, that's a great question. And the way I see it is, Ryan and I and our whole team, we're beneficiaries of many of the caring real estate leaders and professionals that were before us. I mean, they paved a lot of the road. They paved a lot of the level of professionalism that we're striving for. They paved a lot of the community mindedness. And so the way we see it is we're basically just trying to lay some more pavement. We're trying to move the needle, but there's leaders of the future that, hopefully we can inspire and that will carry the torch forward. And so, what we've tried to do, even in the last 3 to 5 years, is bring in who we believe are the leaders of the future. Mm-hmm. And so we believe we have many of those people now that are leading our offices, and they're going to relate to, people in ways that we're not going to be able to, right? Yeah. And so I think kind of understanding that and kind of building a team that's going to speak to, a wider demographic is really wise. I think it's actually essential.
Yeah.
Dermot?
Yeah, I think that's it. I think it's also back to the point beforehand. Everybody starts from a different place. There's a lot of younger leaders like, hey, I want to start with meaning and purpose, and I want to be part of something that does something. Like, for instance, if I was, working at Sereno, I'd be looking for the kids who really want to impact their community. They want to do well by doing well. They want to see the company do well. They want to see their agents do well, because you know what? It's going to change and transform a community. You're going to have somebody out there who's like, that's their most important thing to them, rather than even themselves being financially successful. So great. So we can start with that and then tell them, oh, by the way, you do this, you be the blessing, you're going to get blessed. You help them do well, you're going to do well. So I think it's really, and I think it's the versatility in the leadership. It's like, my way or the highway, good luck. Engage people, ask them what they're praying for, and so that you can pray for it with them. Don't try and be the answer to the wrong prayer. So I think that's the key. But I think, to Chris's point too, as well, we said earlier, if they don't align philosophically, even if you're starting in a different place, it's not going to work. Like, if it's altruism without pragmatism, yeah, it's not going to work. Like, there has to be, like, we're going to love, but we're going to fight. We're going to win and we're going to do good. We're going to have to battle for it. We're going to have to make. So I think, you need a pot of leaders who can all contribute to that, and maybe they're just all starting from a different place, and being able to be versatile enough and aware, like Chris is, on a personal level, to go, this is not about me. How do I help this person get to where they get to from where they're starting from? So I think that's going to be really important for the future, whether it's an agent working with a client, or a leader working with an agent.
Well, both of you, that, I think those are extremely insightful answers. And then going along that same line, there's another question that comes up, and I think reading into this just a bit, it says, how do you two inspire top producers to get to the next level? Well, I think part of it, I'd like to hear, I think the question implies, not only how do you help to get the top producers to the next level, or mid-level producers to the next level, but the company itself. Chris, you made a bold move, many would call a bold move, by affiliating with Christie's. So there's no blueprint for success, but you're willing to take certain risks. So how do you inspire top producers to get to the next level, and how do you inspire others around the industry that are looking at you as a blueprint for their own success and what they should do? So
yeah, well, I think you have to be more strategic than ever. The old days of sitting around with 10 or 20 brokerage offices on, big offices on every corner in your area and just sitting on that, those days are gone. And so the first thing in being strategic is finding out who are the people that are your people and who can you align with. And that's why Thad Wong and Mike Golden was like Ryan and I looking in a mirror. I mean, here's two gents that were agents in the 90s. Thad met his wife at an open house. They started their firm in 2000. I mean, we know what it took to build the firm that we built. These two built the firm with 5,500 agents in the Chicagolands. Phenomenal. And every single person, we've met there, they're real estate people, they're grounded people. And, love is, that's promoted, because it's part of the big DNA of the company. So finding those people and then finding like, a brand like Christie's, again, in our mind is how do we give our agents the greatest advantage in the marketplace? How do we open doors? How do we get the attention of the client? And then it's up to the agent to make that connection, build the relationship, right? They still have to get in there and make the connection, but how do we give them, the tools and the mechanisms to be able to compete, at the highest level? But the last thing that I wanted to share is, and I think as we're in this kind of transitioning market right now, like I think leaders have to be dealers in hope. That's one of the things I think, and I'm not talking about candy coating things, but I mean, being able to process a lot of information in a lot of different areas during uncertain times, and to be able to package that information in a way that you can succinctly share with your people, so you can kind of give them a level of confidence, or maybe it's calming, and then maybe it actually gives them some talking points and that they're able to go out and share with their clients. And I think right now that is just absolutely critical, that that the agents are equipped with that mindset.
Yeah. One of the things, John, is that I don't know, Chris, hopefully I'm not wrong on what I'm about to say, but I think our relationship is based on trust between you and I. Like, Chris is never calling me to say, what are you telling the agents? Or here's what you need to tell my agents. And we've never ever had that conversation. There's a philosophical trust, the fact that we're supporting the same group of people in a different way. Chris is the impetus to support entrepreneurs in getting going, being supported, having the services, having the reminders, serving them on a local level. Our job at Buffini Company is to help people, the things that they're aspiring for, not just in their business, but in their personal lives, their financial lives, their family, or even in their spiritual component of their life, that we have that on paper for them, written down with a plan that doesn't overwhelm them. And so how do you inspire agents? You got to say, if I give the analogy of running a marathon, it's 26.2 miles. Great, that's your goal. Fantastic. How we're going to get you motivated? We're going to get you to take action. Action produces motivation. Motivation does not last. Action creates motivation. So how are we going to get them to run a marathon? Run the 0.2 of a marathon. When you run the 0.2, guess what? We're going to get you to run a mile. After that, we're going to get you to run 5. There's nothing like seeing somebody on their way to achieving a goal in a way that doesn't feel like it's killing them. It's actually propelling them forward. So you can't motivate somebody. Somebody can only motivate themselves. In order to know what motivates them, you got to know what they're aspiring to. What do they want to achieve in their life? Last year, our clients made on average, 23,000 clients made $360,000 and took 5 weeks off. They took 5 weeks off because there's 4 goals we're working on with somebody. We're asking them, how many referrals and leads do you want to generate? How many sales do you want to make this year? How much net income do you want to achieve? And the last thing is, how much time do you want off? So that's our 4 outcomes to analyze somebody, to say, which of the 4 do you want first? And let's get them on a plan. But again, where it works with Chris and I is, I know what he's doing because we're aligned, and we never have to talk about it because we know there's trust there. But I think Chris would say, if somebody's been coached by Buffini, I feel okay about it. I feel pretty good about it because it's going to come back to a good place for all of us. So yeah, I don't think you can motivate anybody else, but you can ask questions to find out what they would love to achieve.
Okay, gentlemen, we're gonna do a very quick 1-minute speed round. 2 questions. Okay. The first one is, if you had it all over to do it all over again, what would you do differently? 15 seconds. Go ahead, Chris.
Start my own firm sooner, and I would have learned all those lessons I shared much more quickly.
There you go. Dermot?
Part 2 of Chris's answer is exactly what I would have done earlier. Ask for help, be more comfortable with who I am, and quicker and ask for help.
Okay, last question. And this is, again, speed round. What do you think 2023 will bring to real estate?
This is a professionals market, and I welcome a changing market. And so this is going to lead to more inventory and more transactions for the people that are fully engaged in the business and taking care of their clients. So we welcome the change. That outlier buyer that was the one that was bidding away over the investor, they're going to be gone. The well-qualified buyers that were trying to buy and the first-time buyers and the move-up people are all going to get to engage in this market. So I think it's going to be very healthy.
Ditto, 100%. And I'm going to add one thing. We're preparing our clients to meet that opportunity. As the pruning happens and people start to disappear, our clients are going to outlast it, and they're going to be the folks who are available to do what Chris just said right there next year, and they're going to be primed for very successful years, I believe. So,
You know, you two are just terrific. I believe our audience will savor every single minute of your conversations. I look forward to seeing both of you in person. Dermot, once again, a spectacular series. Chris, you're an incredible guest and an incredible super achiever. Give my best to Ryan, and good luck with your new affiliation with Thad Wong and Christie's.
Thank you, John and Dermot. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
thank you, John. Thank you, Chris. Awesome stuff.
All right.
Thank you, fellas, and thank you for tuning in.